Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews Now too, and today we're going to be taking a look at possibly one of the most disappointing RGB hubs I've looked at in a long while. This is the Gamemax ARGB hub. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Gamemax RGB Fan Hub. So this is designed for system builders, and maybe if you've already got a Gamemax case and you've got some Gamemax fans already and you want to expand what you've got in there, this is seemingly an easy way of doing that. But in reality, it is a very mixed bag of results. Now we'll go into that a little bit further later on. First of all, we'll go through the unboxing, the ports, etc., all those kinds of things, and then I'll do a little bit of testing with various fans, and then I'll go through and show you some of the problems I've experienced personally and things that may actually catch you out as well if you buy one of these devices. So to start with, packaging wise, pretty simple, does what it says on the tin to some extent. So ARGB Fan Hub with RF remote controller. It's got 3-pin Aura Sync compatibility, so if you've got a 3-pin addressable RGB port on your motherboard, such as your MSI boards, your Asus, ASRock, all those kinds of things, then this is compatible. So it does use the standard 5-pin ARGB layouts. If you've got a 12-volt RGB fan or header, unfortunately this will not work with it. This is purely for addressable systems only. On the side of the box, it's got the MSI logo on there for Mystic Sync compatibility and also the Aura Sync. On the back of the box, it goes into a little bit more detail about the specifications, the ports, etc., etc. But we'll take a closer look as we take it out of the box. Now this at the moment in the UK you can pick up for anywhere between £11 to £15, so it's not particularly expensive, so it's not the end of the world if you buy one and you maybe only want to use certain parts of it, which is actually what I'm probably going to recommend, to be honest with you, is just for a addressable RGB hub and let the fan hub side of things be controlled either by your motherboard or some other device. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later on when I go through some of the strange things that this thing does. So first of all, in the box, you've got the hub itself, and it actually looks quite nice in this nice satin matte black finish. And it's nice to see that the hub is actually encased rather than having bare components or printed circuit boards visible, that kind of thing. On the back, there is a large sticky pad, so you can stick it into the back of your case, maybe on the back wall or on the bottom of the case, again, wherever you see fit. Cabling wise, we've got a bunch of cables here, and it is actually powered by a SATA cable, which is a very nice thing to see these days when there's far too many of these on the market which are actually connected to a Molex connector. So you've got a bunch of cables, and these terminate into one, which is the SATA cable. So that is for your main power, to power the actual device itself. And also this powers the fans and also the addressable RGB. So this takes some of the strain off of your motherboard. The other two cables we've got here are for what you'd consider to be a pass-through. So you've got a 4-pin PWM style connector, and also we've got our regular 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB connection. So these would go through to your motherboard. Now this is where it gets a little bit odd. If you actually want to use the PWM control from this device, connect this to your motherboard. If you want to use the remote control and use the fan speed settings on the remote control, then you leave this disconnected. There isn't actually a way on the remote control or the device itself to actually swap between the two, so it's one or the other. Unfortunately, you can't do both at the same time, which you do actually quite often see on some of the other controllers on the market, and actually even on some of Gamemax's own cases. Slightly different with the RGB connection, you can actually swap between the two. So if you connect this to your motherboard, you can control it from your motherboard software, again from Asus, MSI, etc., etc., or you can control it from the remote control, which we'll take a little look at later. So let's look at some of the ports on this device. So starting off on this side, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 addressable RGB headers. Again, these are the 3-pin 5-volt type. Moving around onto this side, there's another 2, so 6 in total. And on the other side, then we've got our 6 4-pin PWM style connections. Now you can, if you want to, connect 3-pin fans, which I have actually done, and I will be doing later on in the demonstration, so you can see how that works. It does state in the actual documentation online that if you connect up a non-PWM fan, it will be limited to 100% speed. Now this is where I find it a little bit odd. I actually connected a 3-pin PWM style connector from the Sharkoon fan, which is a 3-pin connector, and I actually managed to control the RPMs of the fan via the remote control, which was to be expected. Unfortunately, in the PWM section for the motherboard, it registered as 0 RPMs, which I guess is expected. They do suggest that if you are going to be buying one of these and you want to actually have full compatibility, there is a list of recommended Gamemax fans which you can purchase. I'll put those in the list now. So that's pretty much it for that side of thing. Let's have a look what else we get in the box. So we also get a minuscule instruction manual, which basically you need to put glasses on or magnify it to actually read what it says. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. And last but not least, we get our remote control. So the remote control has got various features on it. So there's a power button in the top. Now this is a multi-function power button. So in the default state, when you power on the system, it is set depending on how you connect up the system. So if you have the PWM style connector connected to the motherboard, it'll be in PWM mode. If you don't have it connected, it'll be in fan control mode, which you can use with these 3 buttons on the bottom. And for the RGB, there's 3 modes. So you press the power button once, it'll go to motherboard control, press the button again, and it'll go back to the hub control, press it again, and that will turn off your RGB in its entirety. The fans will continue spinning if they're connected via the hub, but again, it's a little bit of a mismatch of various different ways of using this thing. It is really confusing, not very user friendly, not very intuitive. Anyway, moving on to some of the RGB functions on the remote control. So you've got speed plus and minus, which I was hoping was going to be for the fans, but unfortunately it's not. It is for the speed of your addressable RGB, so for your chase effects, that kind of thing. Also you've got mode button plus and minus, so that goes through the various modes which are included in the controller itself. It won't actually change the modes in software, so if you're in software mode, you do have to change that via your software from MSI, ASRock, etc, etc. There's an auto button, which for me I would have thought would have been best placed to switch the control. So if you press auto, it will revert to motherboard control. If you press it again, it'll go back to the controller controlling it. But unfortunately, no, it isn't. The auto button is essentially, it just does what it wants with the RGB. It goes through various different types of lighting effects, and basically it's a random button, but I guess they couldn't have fitted the word random on the button. Who knows? Moving down, we've got a lock button, so you can lock in the RGB settings. You've got a W, which is for white lighting, R for red, G for green, B for blue. And at the bottom, like we said, we've got the 3 fan control settings. Now the fan control settings, again, are a little bit odd, as we'll see when we connect up the fans. But essentially, this one is full blast, that one is about 7/8, and that one is about 6/8 of full blast. So it's a really, really close tolerance between what the fans can actually do. So if you have got your own fans, and one I tried in particular was the Be Quiet Pure Wings 2, which actually is a PWM fan, I managed to get 0 control out of it whatsoever, and it just ran at full speed all the time. Again, depending on what fans you use, your mileage may vary, but for me personally, I find no control whatsoever over a 4-pin device. However, connecting up a 3-pin device actually did work out okay. The Sharkoon fans are actually relatively low RPMs, so at 100%, they're pretty much silent anyway, so for this particular instance, they're absolutely fine. But by reducing the speed on the RPMs, it didn't reduce it a great deal. I was hoping that on the lowest speed it would be barely turning, middle would be kind of 50%, and the top one would be 100%, but no, it doesn't work like that. The remote control, just in case you're wondering, is powered by a single button battery, which is in the bottom there. That is included. There is a plastic slit which isolates that so it doesn't go flat in transit, that kind of thing. But again, easy to replace. It's a CR2032 battery, same as motherboard BIOS batteries. So that's the device introduced, and yeah, we're not feeling very positive about this at the moment, but let me fire it up, I will get it connected and you can see exactly what it's like. Okay, so that is our fan connected and our addressable strip. So now we needed some power, so I've got a power supply here, which I've got, it's basically a test system. Obviously if you're building this into a PC, you can just plug it into an available SATA connector. So let's go ahead and plug that in. And there we go. Zip by magic, we've got addressable RGB. So as you can see, it spreads the RGB across all the devices that are connected, and obviously you can have a combination of either all 6 strips, you can have 6 fans with RGB, 3 of each. Again, do whatever you want. There's 6 ports on there, you can do anything you choose. So with the remote control, we press the off button, turns the RGB off. If we had the RGB connected to a motherboard with this additional header, at this point now it would switch over to the other type of RGB control via the software. So we'll turn that back on again, and because we've not got anything connected to the PWM connector either, this makes the fan control all through the remote control. So if we press the low speed setting, you get a flash on the RGBs just to let you know that it's actually received a signal, and it reduces the fan speed accordingly. So if we put it onto full blast, and there's a definite increase in the speed on the fan. Now again, this technically isn't supposed to work because that isn't a PWM fan, it's only a 3-pin, so that is purely working on voltage, so it's increased the voltage to the fan. Anyway, so lighting effects. We go through the mode button. Actually, press the auto button first of all, and it basically goes through and does a cycle of all the different types of effects, so we can probably leave it on for a little bit. After a few seconds, it will change to another type of a lighting effect when it feels like it. So again, it's just an auto button, so it goes through almost like a kind of marquee type effect. So go through the modes, so basically you can cycle through, so you've got your rainbow puke, static colors, and then you go into some of the other effects which are available. Again, pretty much usual stuff we expect to see, various chase effects, that kind of thing, multiple colors. There isn't actually a great deal of effects you can choose, and you cannot choose a specific static color, at least not easily. There's not a way you can adjust them like with sliders, that kind of thing. So essentially, when it gets to a color you like, you can press the lock button, and that will lock in the color. So let's unlock that, and we'll go through some of the other features. Again, pretty much what you expect to see. It is relatively limited what it can do, but again, you can run it through your motherboard, so if your motherboard supports more features and more types of addressable RGB lighting, then of course you can go ahead and do that. So we'll leave this on rainbow puke for now. So now we can go through the brightness, and you can take it down so it's quite dull. And that is on full brightness, which actually is pretty bright. Looks pretty decent, it gives a very nice output. So moving down, we've got the W button, so you can select white, and this is a true white, not a mismatch of all the other colors. Then you've got your red, your green, and your blue, so if you want a static lighting setup, then you can do that, although that kind of negates why you've gone into addressable RGB anyway, but it is there as an option should you wish to. So that is pretty much it for the lighting effects. I'm going to now connect up the Pure Wings Be Quiet fan, and see what happens. Again, this is a 4-pin PWM fan, so in theory it should handle this quite easily. So that is pretty much full whack. So we use the remote control. So that's on low speed. That fan has actually got down quite considerably, and I've not noticed any difference on this, so we'll go straight to the high speed just to see if there is actually a big difference. And there is a little difference, so obviously depending on what fans you connect to this, depending on their highest RPM, your results may vary. So there is very, very little incremental difference in the actual speed. This is, I would say, at probably around about 75% on its lowest setting. If I take it to the middle speed, it's got to be around about 80, 85. And 100% it is full blast, so that's like 1500, 1600 RPM. So again, do make sure that if you are planning to get one of these devices, that your fan's top RPM is actually relatively tolerable, so that you can reduce it a little bit and it isn't too noisy. Some people don't really care too much about the noise and quite happy just to have a little bit of control over the fans. Absolutely fine. Again, if you plug this into a motherboard and you're expecting some really granular PWM control from kind of 0 RPM all the way up to 100%, I wouldn't expect that you're going to get that. Maybe if you use the Gamemax fans, which I don't actually have here at the moment, or at least not available to hand from their list of allegedly supported fans. Again, your mileage may vary, but just do take into account that this is a relatively inexpensive device. Personally, I would say if you're going to control lots of RGB fans, or addressable RGB fans rather, and strips, then this is really a good option, and the RGB side of it is actually really good, and the pass-through works absolutely fine. But for fan control and for that granularity in the RPMs, then you might want to look elsewhere, or maybe just pick up a separate PWM controller, or just plug your fans into a header on the motherboard. So anyway, this has been the Gamemax ARGB 6-port controller. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.